I always thought I knew my dad. I mean, really knew him. Not in the sentimental, Hallmark card kind of way, but in the practical, scientific way. You know, a species you've been observing for 21 years. Mark Carter. 47. Occupation: Senior Logistics Coordinator. A title so profoundly boring it sounds like a sleep aid. Hobbies: mowing the lawn and obsessively straight lines, complaining about the price of gas, and grilling burgers with the emotional investment of a bomb disposal expert. He was the human equivalent of beige. A man whose greatest act of rebellion was buying a slightly spicier brand of salsa at the grocery store. Our conversations were a masterclass in minimalist dialogue. How was your day, son? Fine. Good. And scene. He wasn't cruel or obscene. Just present. Like a piece of sturdy, reliable furniture. You don't have deep conversations with an oak bookcase. You just trust it to hold your stuff without collapsing. That was my dad. And then, one Tuesday night, the algorithm decided to shatter my reality. TikTok, in its infinite and terrifying wisdom, served me a video. It was sandwiched between a golden retriever failing a sobriety test and a girl explaining the history of the Byzantine Empire in 60 seconds. The usual digital chaos, but this one stopped my thumb mid-scroll. The guy on screen was young, maybe 17, with that floppy, artfully messy hair that takes 40 minutes to perfect. He was leaning against a wall, a smirk playing on his lips, but the way he moved, the slight tilt of his head as he spoke, it was like watching a ghost of someone I knew. The video was a POV. The kind where you're meant to be the girl he's talking to. The caption read, "POV, you finally admit you have a crush on me." Cringy, but standard fare. Then he spoke, and the floor fell out from under my world. The voice was pitched a little higher, the words slathered in a layer of fake teenage bravado. But it was him. It was my father's voice. This account, at J17 Real, would become the single most horrifying discovery of my life. Because Jay wasn't just some kid who looked like my dad. Jay was my dad, pretending to be a 17-year-old boy online, living a secret, digital second life. And nobody, absolutely nobody, had a clue. The night it all began was aggressively normal. At Tuesday, I was sprawled on my bed, in that familiar post-dinner slump, using the blue light of my phone to avoid thinking about the 3,000-word essay on post-war European economic policy that was due Friday. The classic student's dilemma: face the soul-crushing weight of academic responsibility, or watch strangers dance to a sped-up pop song for 2 hours. The choice, as always, was easy. My thumb was a blur, flicking upwards, dismissing videos with brutal efficiency, a life hack I'd never use, a dance I couldn't do, a political take so bad it had to be satire. And then, that video, POV, you finally admit you have a crush on me. The guy, the kid on screen, winked. Took you long enough, he mouthed. The audio generic, romantic-sounding indie song. So, what now? You gonna keep staring? Or are you gonna make a move? My first thought wasn't suspicion. It was a weird, detached sense of déjà vu. That guy looks familiar, like someone I'd passed on the street or seen in a commercial. The internet is a hall of mirrors. Doppelgangers are a dime a dozen. I almost scrolled on, ready to forget him, but something made me hesitate. I replayed it. This time, I wasn't just looking, I was analyzing the voice in the original audio clip, because he'd used his own voice for a few seconds before the music kicked in, had a specific cadence, a rhythm I'd heard every day for my entire life. It was the same rhythm I heard when my dad would say, "Take the trash out, Leo." Or, "Did you change the oil in your car?" It was just faster, younger. Then I saw the smile. It wasn't a full smile, more of a smirk, but the way the left corner of his mouth curled up, just a fraction higher than the right. I'd seen that smirk 1,000 times. I'd seen it when he'd beaten me at chess when I was 10. I'd seen it when my mom teased him about his golf swing. It was his "I know something you don't know" face. My heart started to beat a little faster. No, it's a coincidence. It's just a crazy, 1 in a billion coincidence. My thumb, now trembling slightly, tapped on the profile picture in the corner. At J17 Real. The bio was a monument to teenage angst and effort. J17, just a guy trying to figure it out. Don't be fake. Below that, the follower count, 48.7K. This wasn't some random kid. This was a minor internet personality. A C-list TikTok star. I started scrolling through his feed. It was a digital shrine to a fabricated youth. There was Jay, lip-syncing to a rap song about heartbreak, trying to look tough. There was Jay, doing a fit check in a dark room, showing off a black hoodie and ripped jeans. There was Jay, staring pensively out a window with a caption that read, "Sometimes you gotta be alone to find yourself." It was all so absurdly, painfully generic. A caricature of a modern teenager assembled from algorithmic spare parts. But the more I watched, the more the uncanny feeling grew into a cold, sinking dread. It was in the small things. The way he ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tick my dad had whenever he was about to present something at work. The shape of his ears. The way his shoulders hunched just so. Then I saw it. The video was a low-effort one. Just him sitting on a bed, talking to the camera. "Just woke up. No filter. You still think I'm cute?" He'd captioned it. He was wearing a faded, gray Champion sweatshirt. A sweatshirt with a small, barely visible coffee stain on the left sleeve. My blood went cold. I knew that sweatshirt. It was my dad's. His official doing nothing on a Saturday uniform. He'd had it for years. I had borrowed it myself a few times, and that exact coffee stain, a memento from a clumsy morning 2 years ago, was my own handiwork. My phone felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My breath caught in my throat. I swiped back to the first video I saw, the POV one. I zoomed in on his face, my fingers shaking so badly I could barely control the screen. The lighting was dim, designed to be flattering, to hide imperfections. But it couldn't hide everything. There, just to the side of his nose, almost lost in the shadow, was a tiny, faint mole. A mole that has been on my father's face for as long as I've been alive. A mole I used to trace with my finger when I was a toddler sitting on his lap. That was it. The final, undeniable piece of proof. The gavel came down. The verdict was in. And my entire world was found guilty of being a lie. I threw my phone onto the far side of my bed as if it were radioactive. I stood up and paced my room, my hands pulling at my hair. It wasn't possible. My dad, Mark Carter, the king of khakis and quiet disappointment, was masquerading as a 17-year-old heartthrob on TikTok. For an audience of nearly 50,000 strangers, the pieces didn't fit. They were from two different puzzles, two different universes. My dad struggled to attach a PDF to an email. My dad thought streaming was what a river did. There was no way he could have orchestrated this detailed, this successful, this pathetic. I sat on the edge of my bed, the silence of the house pressing in on me. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs, the gentle tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall, a clock my dad wound every Sunday without fail. Everything was normal, except at WAS and single quotes T. Sleep was no longer an option. How could I sleep, knowing that the man in the room down the hall, the man I thought was the most predictable person on earth, was living a lie so bizarre it felt like a fever dream? I knew it. Intuitively, deep in my gut, where the truth lives, whether you want it to or not. My brain was screaming denial, desperately searching for a logical explanation, a deepfake, a long-lost twin brother, a psychotic break on my part. But my body knew better. My body was already trembling with the terrifying, world-altering truth. The next morning, the world was tinted a sickly shade of wrong. The sun came up, just like it always did. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, a scent I used to associate with comfort, but which now smelled like deceit. I could hear my dad whistling downstairs, a jaunty, cheerful tune. It was the theme song from some old 80s sitcom. The sound scraped against my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. Who was that man whistling? Was it Mark Carter, senior logistics coordinator, or was it J17 Real, celebrating a new viral video? I felt like a spy in my own home. Every normal interaction was now a scene in a psychological thriller. "Morning, Leo," he said as I walked into the kitchen. He was standing by the counter dressed for work in his usual slacks and a crisp button-down shirt, the picture of middle-aged responsibility. He looked completely normal. Utterly, terrifyingly normal. There was no trace of the smirking, hair-flopping teenager from my phone screen. "Morning," I managed, my voice a croak. I avoided eye contact, focusing on the cereal box as if it held the secrets to the universe. "You look tired. Late night studying?" he asked, taking a sip of his coffee. The mole next to his nose seemed to mock me. "Yeah, studying," I thought, a bitter, hysterical laugh bubbling in my chest. "I was studying you." Something like that, I mumbled. I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront him. Not yet. I had no ammo. Just a gut feeling and a coffee-stained sweatshirt. He would deny it. He'd call me crazy, say I was seeing things, and I would have nothing. No, I had to go deeper. I had to understand the extent of this performance. I needed to become part of his audience. That afternoon, locked in my room, I went undercover. The first step was creating my digital disguise. I couldn't use my own account. He might recognize my username or, God forbid, my face. I needed a new identity, a throwaway, the ghost. I created a new TikTok account. The username was the hardest part. It had to be authentic. What would a 16-year-old girl call herself? I settled on @Chloe_B_2007, generic, plausible. For the profile picture, I went to one of those AI-generated face websites and created a girl who didn't exist. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and a slightly bored expression. Perfect. The bio was simple. Chloe is 16, just trying to survive high school lol. I even followed a few major pop stars and makeup influencers to make the account look lived in. With my new identity secured, I descended into the rabbit hole of @J17Real. I spent hours analyzing his content, my initial panic sharpening into a cold, forensic focus. The videos, when viewed in succession, painted a disturbing picture. The persona was carefully constructed. Jay was the sensitive bad boy. One video would be him fake punching the wall with the caption "tired of being misunderstood," and the next would be him gently petting a stray cat he'd found. His jokes weren't teenage jokes. They were cynical, world-weary observations disguised in slang. He'd make comments about the daily grind or the rat race, phrases that sounded bizarre coming from a supposed high school junior. It was my dad's own quiet bitterness, repackaged for a younger demographic. He was feeding his own midlife crisis to an audience of unsuspecting teenagers, and they were eating it up. Then I made the mistake of reading the comments. It was a fire hose of adolescent thirst. "My God, you're so hot," from a user named @Hannah.Grace. "I wish a guy at my school was like you," from @Soccer.GURL99. DM me. Followed by a string of heart emojis. There were hundreds, thousands of them. Girls, most with their ages or graduating years right in their bios, fawning over him, fawning over my 47-year-old father wearing my old hoodie and putting on a voice. A wave of nausea washed over me. This wasn't just a weird hobby. This was predatory. Maybe not intentionally. Maybe it was all just a pathetic cry for attention. But the dynamic was rotten to the core. I knew what I had to do next. My fingers hovered over the message button on his profile, a sense of profound self-loathing creeping up my spine. I was about to catfish my own dad. As Chloe, the 16-year-old I-generated ghost. I typed out a message. I kept it simple, mimicking the comments I'd seen. "Hey, her vids are cool." I hit send. My heart hammered against my ribs. A part of me hoped he wouldn't see it, that my message would be lost in the flood of DMs he surely received. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed. A notification popped up on the screen. @J17Real. "Hey back, cool of you to say that. Most PPL don't get it." The speed of the reply was chilling. He was there, waiting, active. This wasn't something he did in his spare time. This was a priority. My hands were sweating. I took a deep breath and typed again, leaning into the character. @Chloe_B_2007. Lol, I get it. School sucks. PPL are fake. @J17Real for real. You get it. What's her name? @Chloe_B_2007. Chloe. You can call me Chloe. @J17Real. Chloe. Nice name. I'm Jay. Ubs lol. The conversation flowed with a terrifying ease. He asked me my age, where I was from. I gave a fake city a few states away, what my hobbies were. And then he started offering up his own story. The carefully constructed sob story of J17Real. @J17Real. It's kinda tough for me, I live with my grandma. She's pretty sick. My parents aren't really in the picture. I stared at the message, my vision blurring. My father, who had a perfectly healthy wife and a son sitting just one floor above him, was typing this live from the comfort of his suburban home. His own parents, my grandparents, were alive and well, living in a retirement community in Florida. At J17 real, I hate school tbh. Feel like no one there is real. That's why I make these vids. It's the only place I can be myself. Then, irony was so thick I could have choked on it. The only place he could be himself was a place where he was pretending to be someone else entirely. A sad, lonely teenager. He was playing a role. And he was playing it with a confidence that spoke of practice, of experience. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't a joke that had gone too far. This was a double life, meticulously crafted and actively maintained. And I was now a part of it. An unwilling actor in my father's twisted online theater. The question was no longer if this was happening. The question was why. And how many other Chloes were there? Asterisk. The next few days were a masterclass in psychological self-torture. I lived a strange, fractured existence. By day, I was Leo Carter, college student, son. I ate dinner with my father, passed him the salt, and listened to him talk about quarterly reports, all while my stomach churned with acid. I'd watch him, looking for a crack in the facade, a flicker of Jay in his eyes. There was nothing. He was a fortress. By night, I was Chloe, the bored, fake 16-year-old. My conversations with Jay had become a daily, nauseating ritual. He was a predator hiding in plain sight, an anglerfish dangling a lure of synthetic empathy. J17 real, had a rough day. My grandma's not doing so good. Chloe_B_2007. Try to hear that sad face. Still J17 real. It's okay. Talking to you makes it better. You're like the only real person I know. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. He called me a fiction I'd invented. The only real person he knew. He was getting good at this. Too good. He'd ask about my day at school, and I'd invent stories about mean teachers and annoying classmates. Feeling a piece of my soul corrode with every lie. He was grooming Chloe, and by extension, he was grooming me, his own son, to be his confidant. The thought was so twisted it made my head spin. The real world began to feel thin, like a movie set. The fake world of my phone felt more potent, more dangerous. I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night, my brain a constant buzz of notifications, lies, and the low, humming dread of what I was going to do with this knowledge. Then, on a Friday evening, the leak sprung. It didn't come from TikTok. It came from Instagram. I was scrolling through my real account, the Leo Carter one, trying to feel normal for 5 minutes. A message request popped up from an account I didn't recognize. The profile picture was of a smiling girl with dark hair, probably my age or a little younger. The username was @myj. My first instinct was to ignore it, probably spam, but curiosity, that masochistic little impulse, got the better of me. I opened the request. The message read, "Hey, this is super random and maybe weird, but you look a lot like this guy I know from TikTok." Your liquid nitrogen flowed through my veins. It had to be a coincidence. It had to be. Maybe she knew another one of my dad's doppelgangers. I typed back, my fingers stiff and clumsy. "Like Carter." "Oh yeah? Who's that?" I watched the bubble appear and disappear. She was typing. My heart was a drum solo against my ribs. My J. His username is @J17 real. You guys have the same smile. It's crazy. The world didn't just slip. It tilted on its axis and sent everything sliding into a black hole. This was it. The crossover event from hell. Someone else saw it. I wasn't crazy. My mind raced. Who was she? A fan? Troll? Was this my dad, testing me from yet another fake account? I had to play it cool. Like Carter? Haha, weird. Never heard of him. Just a coincidence, I guess. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. My J. Maybe. Sorry to bother you. It's just, I used to talk to him. A lot. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Talk to him. How much, Le Carter? No bother. What do you mean you used to talk to him? Another pause. This one felt longer. Heavier. My J. Like we were a thing. An online thing. For a few months, he told me he was falling for me. We talked every day. I had to put the phone down. I stood up and walked to my window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. The quiet suburban street below looked alien. A woman was walking her dog. A car drove by. Normal life. It felt like I was watching it from behind a one-way mirror. My phone buzzed again. I forced myself to look. My J. He told me all about his life. How his parents were gone. How he lived with his sick grandma. How lonely he was. I felt so bad for him. She was reciting the official lore, the same script he'd fed to Chloe. My dad hadn't just created a character, he'd created a universe of lies and was populating it with victims. My J. He got me to send him pictures, stuff I've never sent anyone. The knot in my stomach tightened into a ball of razor wire. I felt sick. Genuinely, physically ill. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a pathetic midlife crisis anymore. This was something dark. Something that crossed lines. Lines that had consequences. My fingers shook as I typed the next question, the one I already knew the answer to. Carter, why are you telling me this? Mayaj, because he disappeared on me about a week ago. Just stopped answering. I was worried. And then today, I was on Facebook, and I saw a family photo your mom posted. You were tagged in it. And I saw that G's account, his personal one, I guess had liked it. He must have done it by accident. He had liked it right away, but I got the notification. I saw his name, Mark Carter. I looked at his profile, and I saw you, his son. The pieces clicked into place with the sickening finality of a coffin lid shutting. He'd messed up. In a moment of careless scrolling, my father, Mark Carter, had exposed his puppet, Jay. He had crossed the streams. The final message from Maya came through before I could even process the last one. It was a simple question, but it carried the weight of a collapsing building. Maya J. He told me he was 17. He looks so young in his videos. Please, just tell me the truth. Is he your older brother, or is he your father? I felt the world go soft and blurry at the edges, the floor seeming to drop away beneath me. It was like I'd been living my whole life in a house I thought was stable, only to have someone peel back the wallpaper and reveal that the foundations were made of sand. I wasn't just the son of a boring man anymore. I was the son of a liar, a predator, a character in someone else's sick story. I felt like my own reality was being swapped out for a cheaper, uglier version, and I was standing right in the middle of it, completely, utterly powerless. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard, paralyzed. Naya's question hung in the digital air between us. A simple inquiry that demanded an answer that would detonate my entire life. Is he your older brother, or is he your father? I couldn't lie to her. I couldn't protect him. Not after what she'd told me. Not after knowing she was a real person. A girl whose trust had been methodically exploited. With a sense of grim finality, I typed the 3 words that sealed his fate, and my own. Carter, he's my father. I didn't wait for a reply. I dropped my phone on my bed like it was a venomous snake and pressed the heels of my hands into Maya's, trying to block out the afterimage of the screen. The conversation with Maya had changed everything. This was no longer a private, internal crisis. My father's secret life had victims, real ones, and the pictures, God, the pictures she'd sent him. My disgust was a physical thing, a sour taste at the back of my throat, but it was quickly being overwhelmed by something else, a cold, hard resolve. I couldn't live in this state of suspense anymore. I couldn't rely on a string of text messages from a stranger. I needed to see it for myself. I needed irrefutable, physical proof, the kind of proof you can't deny or explain away. I knew where it would be. His office. The small, spare room at the end of the hall that he'd claimed as his own. It was his sanctuary, the one place in the house my mom and I rarely entered. It always smelled faintly of old paper and the static ozone hum of electronics. The plan was simple and insane. I had to wait until he was asleep, deeply asleep. The hours that followed were the longest of my life. I sat in my room. The door cracked open just enough to see the sliver of light under his office door. I heard him move around in there, the soft click of his mouse, a muffled cough. Was he talking to another girl right now, filming another video? The thought made my skin crawl. Around midnight, the light went out. I heard the door creak open, then shut. Footsteps padded down the hall to his bedroom. The click of that door shutting was my starting pistol. I waited another hour, my body thrumming with adrenaline. Every creak of the house was a potential disaster. Finally, when the silence was absolute, I slipped out of my room. The floorboards were a minefield. I moved with the exaggerated care of a cat burglar, my heart pounding in my ears. The office door was unlocked. I pushed it open, wincing at the faint squeal of the hinges. The room was dark, lit only by the pale moonlight filtering through the blinds. His computer was on the desk, its monitor dark but for a tiny, pulsing blue light indicating it was in sleep mode. I touched the mouse, and the screen blinked to life. My breath hitched. He hadn't locked it. It was the kind of casual oversight that spoke of arrogance, of feeling untouchable in his own home. My own face, a picture of me and my mom from last summer, stared back at me from the desktop background. A happy family. The irony was a punch to the gut. I ignored it, my eyes scanning the icons, documents, spreadsheets, and then a folder in the corner, innocuously named projects. My hand trembled as I double-clicked. Inside were more folders. My blood ran cold. The names were chillingly corporate. J_clips, audience_engage, submissions. I clicked on J_clips first. It was a digital graveyard of his persona. Dozens of video files, raw and unedited. I opened one. It was him, my father, in that gray champion sweatshirt, trying to nail the smirk from the first video I'd seen. He did it once, twice, 10 times. He'd watch the playback, scowl in concentration, and try again. The calculated artifice of it all was more pathetic and sickening than I could have imagined. Next, I opened audience_engage. It was filled with screenshots, hundreds of them, comment threads, private messages with usernames I recognized from the comments sections. Girls professing their love, their loneliness, their secrets. And him, as Jay, expertly playing the part of the sympathetic ear, the boy who understood. My stomach was in knots. I almost stopped there. A part of me screamed to close the folder, to walk away and pretend I'd never seen any of it. But I had to know. I clicked on the last folder, submissions. The folder was full of images, photos of teenage girls. Some were just selfies, innocent smiles and peace signs. But others were not. They were posing in their bedrooms, in mirrors. They were in their underwear. Some were even less clothed than that. They weren't professional or pornographic. They were intimate, vulnerable. The kind of pictures a girl sends to a boy she trusts, a boy she thinks loves her. My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. It was a gallery of betrayal, a digital trophy room. I scrolled, my thumb moving mechanically, my brain struggling to process the sheer volume. Page after page of young faces, all funneled into this dark, secret corner of my father's computer. Some photos had file names that looked like usernames, others were just strings of numbers. A few had ages appended to them: Jessica_16.jpg, Emily_C_17.png. Each image was a punch. Each one represented a girl like Maya, manipulated by a sad, middle-aged man pretending to be a lonely boy. He had cultivated their trust, weaponized his fake vulnerability, and this was his reward. Then I saw her, a face I now recognized. The smiling girl from the Instagram profile picture, Maya. There were 3 photos of her. They were exactly as she'd described them: intimate, personal, and clearly not meant for the eyes of a stranger, let alone the father of the boy she'd contacted for help. Seeing her face there, in this context, made it terrifyingly real. It wasn't just an anonymous collection of digital files anymore. It was Maya. It was Jessica. It was Emily. This was the proof. Cold, hard, and undeniable. I felt a sudden, violent urge to take the computer and smash it against the wall, to erase this whole folder, this whole persona, from existence. But I knew that would solve nothing. The damage was done. The pictures existed. The trust was broken. And it was illegal. It knew it was illegal. I'm not a lawyer, but you don't need a law degree to understand that a 47-year-old man soliciting and possessing these kinds of photos from 16 and 17-year-old girls is a crime. A serious one. The ugly, clinical term flashed in my brain. Stark and horrifying child pornography. I backed away from the desk, a wave of dizziness washing over me. I felt like I was going to be sick right there on his beige office carpet. My father, my boring, predictable, salsa-buying father was a criminal. The question of what to do slammed into me with the force of a physical blow. It was no longer a philosophical problem. It was a practical one, with 3 catastrophic paths laid out before me. Path 1, the police. I could take this evidence, walk into a police station, and ruin his life, destroy him. They would take the computer, find the girls, and he would become a statistic, a registered sex offender, the man whose name would be synonymous with shame. And what about my mom? She would be the wife of that man. I would be the son of that man. Our lives would be collateral damage in an explosion I had triggered. The thought of it. The public humiliation. The quiet whispers from neighbors. The end of my family as I knew it. It was unthinkable. Path to my mother. I could tell her. I could walk into her room, wake her up, and shatter her world with a single sentence. Mom. Dad is pretending to be a teenager online and collecting explicit photos of underage girls. How do you even say those words? It would be an act of cruelty. Dropping this bomb into her lap, she loved him. Or at least, she loved the man she thought he was. Telling her would mean making his betrayal her reality, and I would be the one to do it. Path 3, my father. Confront him. Walk into his room. Hold up the proof, and watch his carefully constructed world crumble. What would he do? Deny it, lie, minimize it. It's just a game, Leo. They sent them willingly. Or worse, what if he just got angry? What if this whole meek, quiet persona was just another mask? And underneath was something I didn't want to see. I realized, with a jolt of pure terror, that I was afraid of him, truly afraid. The man sleeping down the hall was a stranger, and I had no idea what he was capable of. I was paralyzed, caught in an impossible trap of my own making. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't leave this proof on his computer. I couldn't risk him deleting it, erasing the one thing that proved I wasn't insane. My eyes darted around the desk. Tucked away behind copying projects complete, I ejected the drive, my hand closing around it. It felt hot, radioactive. It was a poison pill, and it was mine now. I put the drive in my pocket, carefully closed the folders, moved the mouse back to its original position, and let the screen fall back to sleep. I slipped out of the office, pulling the door shut with an infinitesimal click. Back in my room, I didn't turn on the light. I just stood in the darkness, the USB drive a hard and forgiving lump in my pocket. I looked at my own door, then down the hall toward my parents' bedroom. The man in there was not the man who raised me. The man who raised me wouldn't do this. He couldn't. That was the moment my disgust curdled into something deeper and more chilling. I began to fear not what he was doing, but who he had become. For 24 hours, the USB drive in my pocket was a tiny, rectangular tumor. It was a constant, heavy presence against my leg, a physical reminder of the poison I was carrying. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I went to my classes like a ghost, my professor's words turning to white noise in my ears. I was a shell. And inside, a silent war was raging. Police, mom, him. The 3 options circled in my mind, each one more catastrophic than the last. The decision was made for me, as I knew it would be. It was just after 1 a.m. The house was dead quiet. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard it, a faint, rhythmic beat bleeding through the floor from downstairs. It was music. The tinny, bass-boosted sound of a TikTok audio clip. He was in his office. Again. He was doing it. Right now, while I was up here, tearing my own soul apart, he was down there, being Jay. The sheer, unmitigated audacity of it snapped something inside me. The fear, the indecision, it all burned away, leaving behind a cold, clear certainty. This had to end, tonight. I didn't bother with stealth this time. I walked down the hallway, my footsteps deliberate on the wooden floor. I didn't care if he heard me coming. I wanted him too. The office door was ajar. A sliver of blue and purple light spilling into the dark hall. The music was louder here. I pushed the door open. The scene was exactly as I had imagined, yet 1,000 times worse. He was there, sitting at his desk. But it wasn't my dad, Mark Carter, the logistics coordinator. He was wearing the gray champion sweatshirt. A beanie was pulled low over his forehead, hiding his receding hairline. A ring light, the kind influencers use, was clamped to his desk, casting his face in a flat, shadowless glow that erased 20 years and all of his dignity. He had headphones on, nodding his head to the beat, his face contorted into that practiced, smirking expression. He was filming. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood in the doorway, a silent judging specter. He was so absorbed in his performance, so lost in the reflection on his phone screen, that he didn't notice me for a full 10 seconds. When he finally did, his eyes flicking up from the phone to the doorway, his whole body jolted. He ripped the headphones off. The smirk vanished, replaced by a slack-jawed panic. His face, stripped of the persona, suddenly looked its age, old, tired, caught. "Leo," he stammered, his voice thin and reedy. What are you doing?" I took a step into the room. The air was thick with his lies. I looked at the ring light, the phone propped up on a little tripod, the beanie, the pathetic stagecraft of his deception. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I let the silence hang for a moment, letting him stew in his own terror. Then I said the two words that I knew would bring it all crashing down. Double quotes J17 real. I said. My voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "That's you." A flicker of something, denial, rage, bargaining passed through his eyes. He tried to bluff. "What? That's just some kid from the app. I don't know what you're talking about." He tried for a dismissive laugh, but it came out as a strangled cough. I didn't flinch. I just stared at him. I didn't need to argue. I had the USB drive in my pocket. I had Maya's messages. I had the truth. My silence was more powerful than any accusation. He saw it in my eyes. He saw that I knew everything. The bluff collapsed. His shoulders slumped, and the fight went out of him. He looked down at his hands, suddenly a small, defeated man bathed in the garish light of his own vanity. "It's just a game, Leo," he whispered, his voice pleading. "A character. It's stupid, I know. But work is a nightmare. Your mother and I, we don't talk anymore. It was just an escape. A way to feel something. It doesn't mean anything." He was trying to make himself the victim, the lonely, misunderstood man looking for a harmless outlet. The Chloe script. My stomach turned. The man I had once respected was trying to use the same cheap, manipulative lines on me that he used on teenage girls. "An escape," I said. And this time, my voice had an edge. It was cold steel. "You're a 47-year-old man. You have a wife and a son. You created a fake life to get pictures from girls who are younger than me. You write to 15-year-olds, telling them you live with your sick grandma." I took a step closer. "That's not a game. That's not an escape." I let the unspoken word hang in the air between us. "Predator." He flinched as if I'd hit him. He looked up at me, and for the first time in my entire life, I saw real, undiluted fear in my father's eyes. Not the fear of being caught. It was deeper than that. It was the fear of being seen, of having the final mask ripped away, leaving nothing but the ugly, pathetic truth underneath. The authority was gone. The father was gone. All that was left was this frightened, hollowed-out man. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. He just stared at me, his face a canvas of shame and terror. I had won. I had exposed him. I had all the power in the room. Should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I just felt empty, broken. The rage I thought I would feel, the satisfaction, it wasn't there. There was just this vast, silent, aching void where my family used to be. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the ring light and throw his phone against the wall. I wanted to rage and cry and demand an answer to the question that was tearing me apart. Why? But all that came out of me was silence. A heavy, suffocating silence that was louder than any shout could ever be. I turned around and walked out of the room, leaving him there, a ghost in the machine. illuminated by the cold light of his secret world. Asterisk the silence that followed our confrontation was a living thing. It settled over the house like a thick, toxic fog. I went back to my room, but I didn't close the door. I sat on my bed and listened. I was waiting for something, a shout, a slammed door, the sound of my mother waking up. But there was nothing, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the frantic thumping of my own heart. I don't know how long he stayed in that office, bathed in the glow of his ring light. An hour, two, eventually. I heard his door creak open and his slow, heavy footsteps move down the hall to their bedroom. He didn't try to talk to me. He just retreated. The next morning, the fog had solidified into a wall of ice. My mother was in the kitchen, making coffee, but her movements were stiff, her smile brittle. She knew something was wrong. She could feel the absence of normalcy. The gaping hole where our family's comfortable dynamic used to be. "Did you and your father have a fight last night?" she asked, not looking at me. She focused on pouring milk into her mug as if it were the most complicated task in the world. "Something like that," I said. My voice was a stranger's. "My father didn't come down for breakfast. He didn't come down at all." I knew I couldn't protect her from it. Delaying the inevitable was just another form of cruelty. That afternoon, while my father was still locked in his room, a ghost in his own house, I sat my mother down at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd had thousands of mundane family dinners. I didn't have the words to explain it, so I didn't use them. I opened my laptop, plugged in the USB drive, and showed her. I opened the projects folder. I showed her the videos of Jay. I showed her the screenshots of his conversations. And then, with a hand that felt like it was made of lead, I clicked on the folder marked Submissions. I watched her face as she processed what she was seeing. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. First came confusion, her brow furrowing, then dawning comprehension. A sharp intake of breath, then the horror, a pale, bloodless shock that hollowed out her eyes and made her look 10 years older. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the screen, her hand covering her mouth, her body perfectly still. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the soft click of the mouse as I closed the laptop. She didn't ask any questions. It was all there, undeniable. She just sat there for a long time. Then she stood up, walked out of the kitchen, and went upstairs. I heard the sound of a suitcase being opened, a quiet, methodical zipping of pockets. 10 minutes later, she came back down, car keys in her hand. "I'm going to my sister's," she said. Her voice was flat, mechanical. She looked at me, but her eyes were focused somewhere far away. "I don't know when I'll be back." She didn't say goodbye to him. She just walked out the front door and drove away. And just like that, the family I had known my entire life ceased to exist. My father stayed locked in his room for another day. I didn't see him. I left a plate of food outside his door, but it was untouched hours later. The house felt like a tomb. On the third day, I woke up to find his door wide open. His room was empty. His car was gone from the driveway. There was no note, no explanation. He had just vanished. He ran away from the life he had destroyed. I was alone in the wreckage for a week. I drifted through the empty house, the USB drive in my pocket, a constant, burning reminder of my duty. I knew he wouldn't face the consequences on his own. He had proven that by running. If there was going to be any justice, any accountability, it had to come from me. I went to the public library downtown. I created a new, anonymous email address. I wrote a short, clinical message addressed to the state police's cybercrimes unit. I have evidence that the user J17 Real on TikTok is a 47-year-old man named Mark Carter who has been soliciting and receiving explicit photographs from underage girls. I attached Maya's photos and a few of the most damning screenshots. My finger hovered over the send button. This was the point of no return. This was the final betrayal. It was also the only right thing to do. I clicked send. The world I re-entered was a hostile place. I started feeling a hot, crawling shame, even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong. It was the shame of association, the shame of being his son. Every notification on my phone felt like a threat. I couldn't look at TikTok or Instagram anymore. They were the crime scene. The digital world that had once been an escape for me was now a monument to his sickness. One night, I methodically deleted every social media account I had. I wiped my digital footprint clean, severing my connection to that world. It was a relief. Like cutting off a gangrenous limb. I was alone. My mom was gone. My dad was a fugitive. And I was left standing in the ruins trying to figure out who I was supposed to be now. The foundation of my identity had been a lie. I thought I was the son of an ordinary man. A boring man, yes. But a decent one. It turned out I was the product of someone else's mask. And when the mask came off, I wasn't sure if anything was left of me either. Asterisk, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the screen, her hand covering her mouth, her body perfectly still. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the soft click of the mouse as I closed the laptop. She didn't ask any questions. Was all there, undeniable. She just sat there for a long time. Then she stood up, walked out of the kitchen, and went upstairs. I heard the sound of a suitcase being opened, the quiet, methodical zipping of pockets. 10 minutes later, she came back down, car keys in her hand. "I'm going to my sister's," she said. Her voice was flat, mechanical. She looked at me, but her eyes were focused somewhere far away. "I don't know when I'll be back." She didn't say goodbye to him. She just walked out the front door and drove away. And just like that, the family I had known my entire life ceased to exist. My father stayed locked in his room for another day. I didn't see him. I left a plate of food outside his door, but it was untouched hours later. The house felt like a tomb. On the third day, I woke up to find his door wide open. His room was empty. His car was gone from the driveway. There was no note, no explanation. He had just vanished. He ran away from the life he had destroyed. I was alone in the wreckage for a week. I drifted through the empty house, the USB drive in my pocket a constant, burning reminder of my duty. I knew he wouldn't face the consequences on his own. He had proven that by running. If there was going to be any justice, any accountability, it had to come from me. I went to the public library downtown. I created a new, anonymous email address. I wrote a short, clinical message addressed to the state police's cybercrimes unit. I have evidence that the user J17 Real on TikTok is a 47-year-old man named Mark Carter who has been soliciting and receiving explicit photographs from underage girls. I attached Maya's photos and a few of the most damning screenshots. My finger hovered over the send button. This was the point of no return. This was the final betrayal. It was also the only right thing to do. I clicked send. The world I re-entered was a hostile place. I started feeling a hot, crawling shame, even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong. It was the shame of association, the shame of being his son. Every notification on my phone felt like a threat. I couldn't look at TikTok or Instagram anymore. They were the crime scene. The digital world that had once been an escape for me was now a monument to his sickness. One night, I methodically deleted every social media account I had. I wiped my digital footprint clean, severing my connection to that world. It was a relief. Like cutting off a gangrenous limb. I was alone. My mom was gone. My dad was a fugitive. And I was left standing in the ruins trying to figure out who I was supposed to be now. The foundation of my identity had been a lie. I thought I was the son of an ordinary man. A boring man, yes. But a decent one. It turned out I was the product of someone else's mask. And when the mask came off, I wasn't sure if anything was left of me either. Asterisk, it's been 6 months. The house is sold. I live in a small apartment near campus now, surrounded by boxes I haven't bothered to unpack. My mom is still at my aunt's place. We talk on the phone. The conversations are strained, full of long pauses and things we don't say. We don't talk about him. It's easier that way. The police contacted her, of course. They eventually found him, 2 states away, working a cash-in-hand job at a motel. I read about the arrest on a local news site. The article was short. Local man arrested in connection with online corruption of minors. They used his driver's license photo. He looked tired and confused. He didn't look like my dad. He didn't look like J17 real, either. He just looked like a stranger. I never told anyone it was me who sent the mail. Not my mom. Not my who I've never spoken to again. It's a secret I'll probably carry forever. My final, ugly inheritance. For a long time, I was terrified of the truth. I was terrified of what it meant. What it did to my past, my present, my future. I felt like a fraud, living a life built on a lie I didn't even know existed. But the silence was worse. The silence was a poison. It was the thing that let him build his twisted little world in the first place. My mother's silence, my silence, his silence. We were a family of ghosts, haunting a house we were too afraid to admit was collapsing. Now, the silence is gone. And it hurts. It's a clean, sharp pain, not the dull, rotting ache of before. But in its place, something else is starting to grow. Freedom. I don't know who my father is. I probably never will. And maybe I don't know who I am either. Not completely. But I'm learning. I'm learning that you can't build your identity on another person. You can't let their secrets define your truth. The lies he told belonged to him, not to me. The shame he should feel belongs to him, not to me. So, I'm talking, right now, to you, because I've learned that truth, no matter how ugly, is better than a beautiful lie. It's the only thing that's real. If you're listening to this, and you're living with a secret yours, or someone else's a secret that makes your house feel cold and your family feel like strangers, don't be the one who stays quiet just to keep the peace. Peace built on a lie is just a prison with comfortable furniture. The silence will eat you alive. It will turn you into a ghost, too. I chose to speak. I chose to break the silence, even if it means I don't know who I am anymore. But I know, with absolute certainty, who I don't want to be. And for now, that's enough.